So this is the process of when we are actually going to be talking and providing the feedback that we just had in the debrief. Because of our situation now, we are going to actually have Angela pretend to be the person giving the feedback because she just observed it. And Antoinette, you are actually going to play the role of being the teacher who taught. So again, we looked at a lesson where the teacher was teaching. You're going to pretend that you're going to be the teacher receiving the feedback. Prior to giving feedback in the ELO process, it's really good if you can, as quickly as possible, connect with the teacher, just because, everyone has busy days and, I honestly forget what I did yesterday. So again, this is supposed to be really quick and just a way to share the feedback with the teacher.
Okay.
Awesome.
Hi, Antoinette. How are you?
I'm doing well, Angela. Thank you.
How's your day been?
It's been good. I'm anxious to hear, your thoughts about the class you came in and observed.
Well,
For a
don't
few
be
moments.
anxious. It's all good. I really enjoyed my time in the classroom and listening to the students, and it was a really good lesson. So, what I wanted to share with you are some things where we saw that where learning was most effective, and some things where lesson could be even more effective. So, the
Okay.
first thing I wanted to share was that learning was most effective when all the students were able to read the prompts on the board.
Great. Okay. So you mean when I wrote them down, the different things that I was having them respond to by moving? Is that what you're saying? Those prompts?
Absolutely. Having those written on the board was very effective.
Okay.
I also thought learning was most effective when students were able to participate through movement.
Yeah, that's something I got from someone else I had talked to, because I had a lot of students who, when I would ask questions and ask them to raise their hand or what have you, some of them wouldn't necessarily do it. So one of my friends was like, "Why don't you just get up and have them move?" I'm like, okay. So, I kind of borrowed that idea, but it did work well, right? Because
Well,
everyone had to move.
that's what we do as teachers. We borrow and we steal. So great strategy. Very effective to getting that participation and getting the students movement. I think learning would have been even more effective is that with that movement, if students were able to engage in opportunities to share their reasons with each other once they had moved to a specific
Oh.
location and collaborate with each other.
That's a good idea. I didn't think about having them like talk in their group um, that they have moved to. Let me ask this question: do you think, since you got me thinking about this, do you think I should have like asked them to give them a guiding question, or just kind of let them just talk for like 30 seconds or something like that?
What do you think you would have gotten the most impact from them?
Um, I guess I could have asked something like, talk to your neighbor. Why did you pick this place? Right? Why are you over here? why are you in
Mm-hmm.
this corner?
Mm-hmm.
And it probably would have given them, some insight
Exactly.
to talk. Okay.
Yeah. And there's one other place where I think learning could have been even more effective, and that was if students were able to connect these questions to the essay in which they were writing a persuasive stance on.
Hmm. So when you say questions, are you meaning the questions that I asked them when they had to move? Are you talking about those questions that I had printed on the board?
Right. If
Okay.
those questions had been connected to the essay in which they were writing a persuasive essay about, it would have been even more impactful.
Okay. So maybe like questions they would
It would have been
use.
that seamless connection.
so the questions they probably would have used to write the essay, right? Like those guiding kind of questions. Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah, because you remember at the beginning you told them they needed to take a stance on something. So if those
Yeah.
questions had been from the essay, it would have given them more evidence to include in their essay to take a stance one way or the other.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess they would have gotten some evidence either for or against when they talk to their peers in the circle. Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very helpful. Very helpful.
Thank you. Okay, Amy, how do we do?
And Antoinette, Angela, that was obviously, it seemed like the rapport between you and Antoinette was already very strong because she invited you into a lot of the strategies. What was most that kind of effective from my standpoint was, I think two things were really effective, Angela. The first was that it was effective when you gave the evidence statements in very direct and concise, objective statements. So you didn't fluff it up, you didn't add any ideas or like context to it, you just said it straight. And that allowed Antoinette to process and reflect on where you were coming from, to then ask questions. Additionally, it was effective when Antoinette, invited you in for strategies and advice. And instead, you were able to reflect and put it back on her to say, well, what do you think the impact would be?
So, I know, because she wouldn't give me any answers.
But the way that she guided her questions was able to affirm your own thinking and kind of build that confidence with you that you have the right strategies and the tools, and it's about thinking, what would you change in that moment?
Right.
What did you think about the process, either from the person giving the feedback or receiving the feedback?
For me, I was a little nervous because I didn't want to give too much information. So I remembered that strategy of the boomerang, that when someone asks you a question to turn it back around on them, because I am ready to just like to give all my strategies. And it's like, okay, we'll do this. So it was really hard just to sit back and not want to give all the answers.
Exactly. And why is it important to not give strategies or all the answers like that?
Well, I think because you want them to have a sense of ownership and accountability, right, for whatever it is they choose. And so I appreciate, it can be a little frustrating sometimes. You just want to get straight to it. But I appreciate the fact that Angela's like, well, what would you do, right? And so then I have to stop and think about, what are some things I could have done differently? And then also, when I started to think about those things, then I realized the impact it would have had on the students, right? So like the whole having them, when I asked, do I need to give them a question to have a conversation in that group that they had moved to? And she was simply saying, well, what do you think you should have done? And so then I said, well, maybe I just could have asked them to share their thoughts, right? For 30 seconds. And then as I was thinking about if that had happened, what would have been, the impact of that? They would have had more information to, inform what they were going to write. So, I was able to kind of like think it through if that action had taken place. So it's easy as it is to ask sometimes to get something. I think it's more fruitful and impactful if you're able to think that entire process through on your own. So thanks.
And Amy, I really like that it didn't take a whole lot of time.
No.
It was just like straight into the point, but it's something that the teacher can take back and use right away.
Exactly.
Agreed.
And again, it's this really small snapshot of learning that can be replicated over and over. And the vision is that it opens up to all all teachers and colleagues in the school building, where, you know, a veteran teacher who's been teaching for 30 plus years could go observe a novice teacher and then flip it around. The novice teacher goes and observes and gives feedback to the more experienced teacher, because there's all these different perspectives and ways that you might think of something differently to share with other folks. And I think a really
Exactly.
good point, and when you provide the feedback, Angela, when you said learning could have been more effective in this area, you are challenging Antoinette to be thinking outside the box and in that impact area of not only in that particular lesson, but how can this be translated and transferred into future lessons, but also typical similar children or student learners in other classrooms throughout the building. Because often
Exactly.
we, you know, teach second grade and maybe we become a fifth grade teacher, and you see similar types of students throughout your teaching career to think about different strategies you might want to use. Um,
I
what,
like it.
what about you, Antoinette? How did it feel to receive the feedback?
I think that the relationship helps, you know, when you have a relationship with your colleagues and peers, knowing that they're there to help you. You know, Angela and I are good friends and colleagues. And so I was like, yeah, you know, tell me, you know, what it is that you think I could do better. Right. And so it wasn't a adversarial or, you know, contentious kind of feeling. It was just like, if I had walked across the hall and said, Angela, I need your help on blah blah blah, right? And so she would give it to me. So I felt really comfortable in that spot. I'm just wondering what happens when you have someone who comes in, even though you're colleagues, right? You know, but you work down the hallway in that grade level, coming into another classroom, and then you're giving me this feedback. I don't know what that would feel like, right? And so I don't know if best practice is to start with people in your little cohort, or is it a school-wide thing? I don't know, because the relationship did help.
Good. Yeah, I think in the experience of rolling out LOs in like schools and districts, is we've heard it's most helpful to find those people who are really excited about it and very comfortable at first, and bringing on folks who might be, you know, not as excited to have people in their classroom, to invite them to be in the process of observing other teachers so they can kind of begin to understand the process, that it's not about personal teaching strategies, or I'm looking for that kind of the traditional, you know, look through walkthroughs or an evaluation, right? It's again, it's a very informal, peer-to-peer collaborative process that we hope to kind of foster within a school culture. So you're absolutely right. It really does kind of matter how you plan and you strategize about rolling this out to folks. But often I think a lot of people really enjoy it once they're part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Right.